All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome to another episode of ANCAP Radio. We are getting all set up on the tech side of things. Oh, perfect. I was going to say to our team, see if you could shoot Jeremy an email just to make sure he had a link, but it looks like we figured it out there. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell, the voice of liberty here on ANCAP Radio, and we've got another awesome episode lined up for you here today. Before we do that, again, we just want to thank you if you're listening live or with us on the replay. Make sure you smash that retweet button, the like button. We want to get this out to as many eyes and ears as possible. Spread the ANCAP philosophy to the world and beyond. The only way we can make an impact, the only way we can make a change is with the people that we have in our circles, right? And that's all we can really ask for. So, always on a mission seeking truth, and we're going to be diving into some more truth seeking today, I'm sure, and a lot more. I just realized we also want to make sure we give a proper viewer discretion advice for today's episode. Moms and dads, we might have some profanity in today's episode, but hey, it's ANCAP Radio, live and let live, right? We just want to give you a little heads up. So we're going to have a lot of fun with our guest here today. He is a farmer, and I just had his bio pulled up and I clicked a bajillion buttons. Here we go. But he's a sailor, he's a pilot, he's an engineer, he's a farmer, he's an author, he's an artist, international man of mystery, and I know you guys are loving the profile picture on this one. I want to welcome to the stage today's guest, Jeremy Bernal. Jeremy, welcome to ANCAP Radio. Great to finally have you on here. And if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about your background and also, how you first became an anarcho-capitalist.
Okay. Testing, is this on? Can you hear me? Yep. Good. Okay. Yeah, I guess I became an anarcho-capitalist. I don't know. Maybe I was born an anarcho-capitalist. I don't know. I kind of figured out I was not the only one at one rare, like it was an expat meeting in Uruguay in Montevideo. And, you meet all these people from all over the place, and talk starts happening, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of an anarcho-capitalist. And then these other people are like, oh yeah, I'm an anarcho-capitalist too. Oh, here, this guy is too. And that's how I met Marco. And I guess he's the one that dragged me into this group of misfits. And I don't know, I always was kind of a capitalist, a believer in capitalism. And, I came to discover these kind of things by, writing my own little video games when I was a kid. I had this Texas Instruments computer, and I would write these video games and little simulations and stuff. And I was always like trying to find out, like, all right, what's the best economic system for people to live and thrive in? And the math never worked out for communism. It never did. It always ended up with everybody's broke, everybody's starving to death, everybody's miserable. And, really, game theory supports this. The simulations supported it, even though, I wrote this stuff when I was a teenager. And that always had me thinking free market ideas, free market economics. I always hated dealing with authority and the government. And I always felt like I was the only person until I started reading some stuff from Ayn Rand and Rothbard and, these classic Austrian economists. And, you if you have that kind of open mindset that, okay, this stuff isn't working, and, there's a better way, there's got to be a better way, you inevitably tend to find free market principles and anarcho-capitalism. And that's kind of, I hope that kind of
That's where it
explains
begins.
it.
It's interesting. You said you started with, I think I was born one. And you want to believe that, I mean, I'm sure there are people who go through different transformations throughout their life to kind of get to this point of awareness, which is always an ongoing journey too, right? Like, you're never, I think there's a philosopher, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. But a lot of ANCAPs have expressed kind of being born this way, being born. I don't know if outcast is the right word, but I've heard Doug Casey talk about it before, and um, I don't know what you want to label it. I guess you could say lucky, a blessing, but it is cool to see this common trend of people just naturally just being born free. I don't know how else to put it. And it sounds like that was your journey. But one thing I wanted to ask there is, like, where did you grow up? Did that play a role in anything? And then also, I know you've traveled and lived a lot of places too. So let's kind of like bring all the places you've lived together here.
Oh man, how long do we have? I grew up in the outskirts of Chicago. So when I was a kid, we lived on kind of a dead end street in the middle of cornfields in the suburbs. And over time, it became paved over with literally everything. And I've lived in Chicago, New York, North Carolina, Florida, Uruguay, Chile, Bermuda. I mean, there's so many different places.
I
I mean,
didn't
I've
know
got
about.
lake.
I didn't know you spent time in Bermuda. How did you end up
Yeah,
there?
I
What was that like?
spent time in Bermuda. So I was living on my sailboat at the time, and I had this goal of sailing across the Atlantic, and I sailed from Florida to Bermuda. It took me about a week, and literally everything on the boat broke. And it was just, it was bad. And the thing is, it wasn't harsh weather. It was the lack of harsh weather that broke everything. If you're in a boat and you're going on the ocean and it's slow, like the slow rolly stuff, like it just tears the boat to shreds because everything's kind of flapping and loose. If there's a wind to hold stuff to the side, you're good and stable. But it was that doldrums that wrecked everything. So I got to Bermuda and I had to spend so much time fixing everything that I kind of lost my weather window to continue across the Atlantic. So I was in Bermuda for, man, I don't know how many months that was. And it was a wonderful experience. Like, it's a great place. And it's a shame that he only let you stay so long. But I don't know. Sometimes I'm tempted to go back now that they announced that they've got kind of like a digital nomad visa. That might be something worth looking into. But my heart is in the farming stuff right now, so I don't really see myself going any other places for a while. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you're
going.
even just looking at your resume. I know there's a lot here to unpack, but you just talked about sailing, pilot, engineer, farmer, world traveler. I guess we're kind of touching on all of these, but where did that come from for you? The desire. It sounds like you've been acquiring skills throughout your whole life, which is something we always hear, but like no one ever really follows up on it. So like, how did that play out for you?
um, I guess we were kind of inspired to have itchy feet early as children. My mom was a school nurse and my dad was a teacher, so they had the summers off, and we would go on these long road trips all over the place. So, by the time I was a teenager, I'd been to Canada, 48 contiguous United States, Mexico, like all over the place. Um, and you realize that there's so much to see in the world, so many neat things, so many different people, different cultures, etc. Um, it becomes difficult to stay in one place for a long time. You get itchy feet, and they need to be scratched, and so you go traveling. And also, if you've been exposed to that stuff early, um, the thought of culture shock doesn't really scare you, and sometimes it kind of becomes necessary as a sort of mental reset. Um, so 2008 rolled around, and my wife at the time and I were real estate investing, and we're like, okay, the States is played out, it's done for a while. Where else can we look? And we're like, oh, we could buy some property in South America. So we checked into that, and we lived in Uruguay for a while. We bought some land in Argentina. We had so much different properties in so many different countries and so many different foreign residencies, and it just became ridiculous. But yeah, man, it's just been a crazy life. So
Yeah, I know, and we're gonna get him. I think we're gonna get him up here in a moment to kind of to co-host this episode. But I believe you and Dave are both. Is it Vanuatuian? What do you? What's the right?
oh yeah. Hello, fellow citizen. Yeah, I'm a citizen of Vanuatu. I'm still waiting on my Chilean citizenship. They're taking their dear sweet time on that. Um, I'm a citizen of the U.S. I've got legal residency in Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile. which means I can technically basically live and work in like 90% of South America, possibly more. And then there's all the other visa-free countries. And so, I don't regret spending all the time and money on doing all that stuff. It's a great backup strategy in case things go belly up here. I learned the language. I became fluent in Spanish. There's all skills that really don't cost you a whole lot other than time. And they're very valuable, man. Like, I really wish I had learned Spanish earlier on in life. Like, it's just been such a fantastic thing to be able to do. Just go somewhere. An entire continent is open to you if you can speak the language.
So true. It is the one language that I do my best to focus on, at least keep a little bit conversational. So I gotta agree with you there. Now, one thing, and I know you're gonna know where I'm coming from on this one, but one overwhelming opinion within the ANCAP community is Latin America is the best and most free place in the world to live. If you move to Latin America and you just buy gold and you live on a farm, then you're gonna have the best ANCAP life that anyone could ever imagine. I know you kind of beg to differ there, and you kind of did what a lot of ANCAPs would throw rocks at, and I'm totally sympathetic to that view too. But you moved back to the USSA, so walk us through
Yeah.
all the thought process
So be careful before you ingest the Kool-Aid, I gotta say. It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's a lot more difficult to get things done. And time being the only finite resource that I have, when it's wasted, it drives me crazy. I don't like it. I can be much more like useful to myself, my family, and the planet if I don't waste my time standing in lines getting bureaucratic tasks done that really shouldn't exist in the first place. So, yeah, ANCAPs say, "Oh, I love South America. You're so free," and then in the other breath, like, they gotta wait hours and hours in these bureaucrat offices, kowtowing to the government, which they profess to hate. And so, for example, in Uruguay, I would have a task list, your to-do list. You always have your list of things that need to be done. And, I would be lucky if I could get one complete every day. And in contrast, when I moved to Chile, which is much more bureaucratically efficient and you don't need to get government paper to do anything really, I was like, I could get my whole to-do list done in a single day as a person who has not spent much time here. And my wife felt the same, and we're like, let's just sell everything in Uruguay and move to Chile. And so we did. And then we got divorced. So anyways, but, yeah, each country is different. Each country has its pitfalls, but it's not like a one-size-fits-all solution to everybody. And then you have, all right, well, if you're somebody like me that can't sit still, they have to constantly be building something or fixing something or, planning something, getting things done. Uruguay sucks. The availability of goods and services just are inadequate completely across the board, I must say. The access to capital goods, heavy equipment, that kind of thing. It's so tough, and it's twice as expensive as it is anywhere else in the world. So if you want to get things done, I think the US is still the best value for your money, despite the scariness of the federal government. But the other thing is, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. So if you keep a low profile in the States, like, yes, it's just as corrupt as any other country, but the corruption starts at a much higher level and continues way, way past anywhere I'll ever be. So I'm small fish. I'm not afraid really of the federal government, and I'm okay with that. The thing I am most afraid of is large numbers of stupid people, which you have everywhere, honestly. So yeah,
and even within the U.S., I think where you're at, Florida, it's clear to me from also being able to live there. It is almost a country within a country for a lot of
it
reasons.
is. Yeah. We don't put up with that shit here.
Right. I mean, every now and then you'll see a headline or how. I feel like you just see this everywhere. I've got friends in Australia, and even some of our friends, Dave can attest to, some of our friends in New Zealand. If all you did was watch the news, you would think that New Zealand, Australia, even where I'm at right now, Canada, are probably the absolute worst place ever in the world to live. Yet, if you're actually there, you find out, okay, for some reason, there's just this like almost BS news being circulated. So I think anytime the U.S.
Yep.
is kind of portrayed as like a authoritarian place to live, you just look at people like you and you just kind of say, all right, well, like, does Jeremy have a gun to his head right now, or is everything okay?
I've got lots of guns, but none of them are pointed at my head. I don't know. It's a grass is greener kind of thing. You know, you always think, oh God, stuff sucks here, but then you realize a lot of it's just noise. There's no signal. It's propaganda. You know, there's always groups that want you to be fearful and restless,
Totally.
and try to distract you from your plans. And you know, if you can just shut off the news, the news is worthless. Why does anybody even pay attention to the news at all anymore? Like it's trash, it's lies, it's wrong, it just stresses you out. So you gotta just you put that stuff away. You pay attention to a few important sources of information that you trust, and yeah, don't pay attention to the rest of the propaganda, because for the most part, everybody on the planet wants to be left alone to do their stuff that they got to do. And, you know, that's just a universal human truth. And, you know, in today's day and age, when the government can be exposed when they do shitty things, they don't like negative PR for anything. It's just bad for them. So, you know, if you are not a total scumbag and deserve to be trounced, then I don't think you really have a whole lot to worry about in terms of the government. And, you know, if you are truly, truly afraid of the government cracking down on you, you know, the possibility exists that you may be a douchebag. So, I don't know, just don't be a douchebag. And I think you'll be all right.
There you go. That's lesson number one here on NCAP Radio for today. We're about a quarter of the way through here. I want to remind everyone in about 13 minutes we are going to open up the floor for callers, comments, questions. So if you got anything ready for Jeremy or something comes to mind, just get ready to share that with us here in a moment. But before we head that direction, I do see that we were able to get our co-host all set up here on the show today. So Dave, good to see you. And any thoughts for Jeremy so far as we make our way through here?
No, I got many thoughts for Jeremy. Good morning or afternoon, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Great to see you here on our show.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for inviting me.
You're someone I've personally enjoyed communicating with over the last 12 months, and whose ideas and values I've appreciated immensely. So welcome, and long may they last, and you continue to express them. But I mean, however, there may ultimately be someone in the state who thinks you're a douchebag. That's the only problem, isn't it?
That's true.
That what I would like to know a bit more about, Jeremy. Thank you for the introduction and for the descriptions you gave us. I've heard you opine previously about the frustrations of venues like Uruguay. And I mean, in lots of respects, that is the problem, is that there is a correlation between places that are easy to get residency or passport and the unattractiveness of their, political structures and natures, but which is frustrating immensely. And as you know, I live in New Zealand, but it's not just because I was born here, but because it is actually familiar, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yep.
And familiarity has a strong currency,
it is definitely.
Yeah, which we reflected on. But tell me about your farming. I know you sold a farm you had recently, and you're on a new farm. Is that correct?
It is correct. Yeah, we upsized So our old place
Right.
got, we bought this property on the edge of kind of known civilization in Central Florida, and so many people are moving to Central Florida. It's insane. So, within a few years of
Right.
us setting up our nice little homestead, like suburbia basically exploded all around us, and we were the last property
Yeah.
left that was not for sale. And we looked around and we saw them tearing up everything, and we're like, oh no, how long is this going to last? And we look at the site plans and everything, and they're like, oh, they're going to be building this for
Yeah.
5 years, and this next to us, and this is condos right up on our property line, looking at where we slaughter our chickens. And we're like, you know what? I think it's time that we leave. And so, yeah, we sold our property for top dollar, and I bought 3
Fantastic.
times as much land and then some, a couple hours away in the redneck swamp of the Swanee Valley, Florida.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we're on a pretty decent sized property.
Actually, but isn't there a good lesson in that for people who are listening, who that I know of so many people in New Zealand for exactly the same reasons. If you're buying property, wanting to buy rural property, notwithstanding the deep desire and aspiration at various points in one's life to find a gulch completely remote where no one can get to. But I mean, as a starting point, if you're starting out as a young person, it isn't there merit in buying a rural property reasonably close to a suburban region or a higher density region where it's going to grow, because the potential in the mad world we live in to make an awful lot of money as a consequence of just sitting on that for 10 or 20 years is very, very high, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the thing is, like, in that meantime, if you are producing more than you consume, there's a ready supply of customers for your product.
Right.
Now that we've left, I see so many posts on Facebook for people looking to buy, good, clean food like we made that close to town. And we're like, you know what? Like,
Right.
you had that. You're standing on the bones of that. So
Yeah.
had we stayed,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could have done really well, but we needed to expand anyways. And
Yeah.
so here
Great.
we are.
So Jeremy, can you give us a thumbnail sketch of all the things that you do? Well, for first up, how big is your current property?
We've got just shy of 70 acres here.
And do you farm organically?
Better than organically. Like, we do
Right.
no chemicals, no pesticides, no nothing. I mean, we feed all organic feed, if at all. Like, the cows eat nothing but grass. Literally, we don't feed them. People are like, well, how do you get them so big and fat just eating grass? Well, that's how they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do cattle, we do chickens, pigs. We got turkeys going now. So we got
And same with your animals. You have no inoculations, none of that for your animals.
So we did vaccinate a few of the chickens for Marek's disease because that's a thing out here. I'm 50-50 on that because it is kind of a shitty vaccine. It doesn't keep them from catching it. It doesn't keep them from spreading it. It just keeps them from dying from it.
Right.
And, knock on wood, we haven't had any other incidents with it. But, and it's a thing that, if the new chickens are doing well and nobody's dying, then you don't need to continue using it. So that's the direction we're going now. We stopped vaccinating them. But it's not an mRNA vaccine. Like, I will never put that crap in my food, like, ever.
That's only for people, Jim.
Well, they are using it for they have been using it for beef and chicken and pigs.
I
I
know.
did hear that. Yeah.
for a long time. I mean, and they don't have to tell you that it's in there. There's no requirement. There's been some moves to kind of counter that. I think Tennessee's got a bill on the table that food producers must list whether or not they've, jabbed their animals with mRNA. But presently, nobody has to tell you if it's in there, and it's in there.
No.
So unless you're growing your food yourself, or like where your meat is sourced, like getting it directly from a farmer who doesn't do this crap, then yeah, you're eating spike protein laced garbage, toxic stuff.
So on the animal side, you have beef, you have pigs, and you have chicken for meat,
and turkeys, and a mountain of eggs.
Right, and then you've got hens for egg production.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we
Cool.
breed our own meat
Okay.
chickens. So in terms of chicken inputs, the only thing we have is feed, and I'm working on growing my own, or at least purchasing local and milling it myself.
And then you do a range of vegetables?
We've gotten into that this year, so we're not doing it for sale yet. We're doing it to see how well we can cover our own needs. And it's going really well. So Florida's a harsh environment to grow crops in anytime other than in the winter. So we went, and a lot of it has to do with the sheer amount of rain and the force of the rain that you get. It's very damaging to a lot of crops. So things that do well here, like potatoes and peanuts, that are mostly underground. Anything that kind of grows above ground, you got to be real careful with. So we have started growing stuff in a greenhouse, and you think, well, Florida in the summer in a greenhouse. Well, the greenhouse is not to keep it warm; it's to keep the rain off of things, to prevent mildew, to prevent damage. And so we started this hydroponic tower in this greenhouse, and my God, man, we cannot. It's just one hydroponic tower. We can't even put a dent in it. It looks like a tree. It's enormous. There's just so much salad coming out of this. We got strawberries and greens, and it's amazing how well this thing works. Yeah.
And how do you feed that? How do you feed those plants?
So you use, it's basically like a hydroponic nutrient. It's NPK. You just figure out what your plants need and you put it in. So that, it's a raw chemical input, but literally all it is a suspension, liquid suspension of nitrogen, phosphorus, that kind of stuff. So
potassium, right?
Yeah. Anyways,
I've seen the videos of just how big you can get the veggies, if you will, using those towers.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think we could probably replace that with like an aquaponic system. But our goal was to see, like, okay, we want to be veg sufficient now. So what's the fastest and easiest way to do it? And then we'll learn how to add other systems into that to feed that later on. So yeah, aquaponics is definitely in the future picture.
Right. Okay. And then tell me, you mentioned about having a surf eat of eggs.
We eat Bernal, family farms eggs here at the Carswell house. So
he can vouch for me. They're good.
They're good. They're good. I got some for my wife's birthday when we went and saw Jeremy.
Oh, how fantastic! Oh, well, that's a great testimony to them, Jeremy. How many layers do you have?
Oh man,
you counting them up?
Yeah, I'm counting them up. I'm trying to think. I mean, just off the top of my head, probably about 80 at this point.
Okay.
And we keep adding more.
And give me a feel, because my wife will be listening to this, and she needs a thorough lesson in how to deal with laying hens, because they were so free range in our place that in summer we couldn't keep them out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, out of my frustration, I insisted that she get rid of the dozen or so we had. And that was about the same time we had a massive egg shortage in New Zealand. And so, as usual, my timing on these investments was just woeful. So but I'm very keen to see us get some hens back if we can. Um, so the 80 you have them in a fence enclosure. They are actually in some form of enclosure.
They're in all kinds of different things. So I like to experiment and build different chicken housing, and I like to kind of make them bulletproof. So I tend to use like a military surplus trailer chassis to build as the base for my chicken houses. So, they can't blow over in storms and hurricanes and that sort of thing. And it helped greatly with the move, because all I had to do was lock the doors and like cart this thing down the highway. So I've got, what looks like military communication shelters that have been converted into chicken housing, and I've got any kind of cobbled together mismatched weird chicken tractors and houses, and so for the most part they just kind of roam around in open air. Some of them have fences that they don't respect. They could fly over or jump over if they want to. Some of them squeeze through. Once they're a certain size, they've escaped that sort of threat of aerial predation. We don't have many ground predators here that can get in, and of those who get in, not many of them make it out. So the biggest threat's from birds of prey, and once the chickens reach a certain size, it's not an issue. So you can just kind of safely let them roam. And then with each group of hens, we have a rooster, not just for protection, but for breeding. So we can hatch the next generation, because, hens are only productive for 2-3 years. So for the most part, they free roam. We raise our meat birds in a chicken tractor just so they stay put until they're ready to slaughter, and they have fresh grass every day. And I recently built like a really giant chicken tractor. It's like 12 foot by 16 foot. And it's enormous. There's so many chickens in there, but it's been so great because, it contains them. They don't have to roam around as much. And it's easy to move, keep them on fresh grass every day. And I'll be building more of those. So the turkeys, when they go outside, they'll be in a mobile enclosure to protect them from predators.
And the feed you're using at the moment, Jeremy?
We use an all organic, no soy, no GMO, no corn feed for most things. I think there's corn in the pig feed, but it's all organic. Soy is terrible for health in general, but for male health particularly. And I don't want to be eating that, so we don't do that. And, the people who buy our eggs benefit from that as well.
And you're literally selling those at your farm gate?
No, we sell them at farmers markets. We have a lot of old customers from the old place. Once in a while, we go down there to visit the in-laws, and we'll say, "Hey, you got a truckload of eggs? You want to come get some?" And so we'll bring you eggs and chickens and whatever people order. I've started going to farmers markets recently, and it's nice to go there with a cooler full of eggs and then come home with a pocket full of cash. So
no, pocket full of cash is always fun, isn't it?
I gotta say, I don't like doing farmers markets because it's a lot of sitting around talking with crazy people. This one lady tried to come up and push some feminist propaganda on me about forcing chickens to lay eggs. I'm like, well, you as a woman, you as a woman lay an egg once every 28 days with or without the presence of a man. Chicken cycle is just faster.
That's great. No, they are farmers markets are a great social study, though, aren't they? They can
Yeah.
be delightful in that respect. So so well done. So if you were giving advice to someone, Jeremy, for someone who was just starting out, a young couple starting out, wanting to buy a small rural block for the purposes of um, setting up a lifestyle, starting to become more self-sufficient. But they were looking for some form of income, some form of
Hmm.
basic income. What would you be recommending? It's, something literally as easy as, not as easy, as basic as eggs, but
Well, so nobody's ever going to get rich on eggs.
no.
Eggs basically pay our feed budget, and that's that. Like, we'll never make a tremendous income on eggs. Uh, I know down to the penny what every egg costs me at any time of the year. I spreadsheet everything. I know how
Yeah,
much feed
right.
went into it. I know how many eggs we're
Yep.
getting on average every week. Yada yada.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're not doing that, you shouldn't. You shouldn't try to treat it as a business.
Okay.
I would say take care of your own needs first. Make
Yep.
sure it's supplying you, and then sell your surplus.
Right.
You don't even necessarily need to buy land. If there's unused land, you could talk a farmer into leasing to you. Like, land leases are cheap traditionally. You just say, "Hey, look, can I rent a couple of acres to raise some meat chickens on?" Um, and you can raise meat chickens in the same kind of ways that you can raise egg chickens. Like, you could build a chicken tractor to house egg birds. The point is to keep them protected from predation and to keep them on fresh grass every day, so they're not like living in their own feces. The
Right.
birds are much healthier, etc. So you could build like a mobile, and turn a chicken tractor into an egg mobile, so to speak. And you don't need to own the land to do it. So there are cheap options to get into it. And farmers, when we see a kid out there who wants to get into doing this stuff, tend to
Yeah.
be very open to, like, thank God, like, thank
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
they're not like punching holes in their face and coloring their hair blue. And
Yeah. Yeah.
like, we
Yeah.
want somebody, as young people, we want them playing in the dirt. So, like, heck yeah, here, I'll just let you come out here, as long as you
Yeah.
supervise your animals, you're out here feeding them every day and taking care of them. Like, here, you could use this acre and play around with
How
it.
cool. How cool.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's stuff out there. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're looking to buy rural land, like, by all means, do it. Um, I did it later in life, and I couldn't be happier. Like, it's so
Yeah.
satisfying, despite like
Yeah.
the heartbreak and the pain. And you
Sure.
know, I've never been
Yeah.
fitter. Like,
Yeah.
I'm out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
in the heat, probably 2 hours a day, like, just marching around, doing shit, feeding things, lugging heavy objects. Like, it's good for you. It's good for your health. It's good for the soul.
Yeah. 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 And
Right.
by and large, you're being left alone.
Yeah, I've had no problems.
Yeah.
And I've found that even the bureaucratic stuff, like for the poultry permits and all that kind of thing for the state,
Right.
like, they don't really give a shit. And
Yeah.
like, I've been meaning to
Yeah.
make a YouTube video to encourage other people to do it, because you look at the websites and they have all the rules and regs and all that stuff, and like, for every rule and reg, there's like, oh yeah, this thing we don't really deal with anymore. So here's the exemption form that you have to put in at where it asks you for, like, all the permission forms to do this other thing. They're like, yeah, just ignore that. So like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
applied for it online, and the inspector calls me and he's like, yeah, we don't even come out to sites anymore if they want this permit. We're going to ask you, like, are you going to do 10,000 chickens a month? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, here you go. Here's your permit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And here I
Yeah.
was thinking I'd have to outlay thousands of dollars for, like, a water study and all this other stuff. And no,
Goodness me.
they
Yeah.
don't care. They don't care. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You're not a huge operation. So yeah, to be big enough to reach like an actual inspection level operation, I'd need to be pumping out like, a factor of thousands more than what I'm doing now.
And Jeremy, the beef you produce, that is primarily just for your own consumption, or are you selling that as well?
No, we're selling it. Yeah. So
You're
one of
selling,
our cows.
Yeah.
Oh, we raise Dexters, so they're a smaller heritage breed that does really well on grass in all kinds of different environments. They forage, they eat not just grass, but they eat the weeds and everything else too, which is good.
Right.
And they're delicious. Like once you've had Dexter beef, I don't think you'll go back.
Really?
It's a step above the Wagyu, the famous Wagyu.
Yeah, it's better than Wagyu. I in my opinion, and it's not just because that's what I have. It's like I have that because that's what I think is
Dave, I mean, I never thought about this, but maybe ANCAP Radio might need its own food branch. I don't know how far you're going to be able to deliver organic food, Jeremy, but
if you pay for shipping, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
So
I'm afraid I've never tasted Dexter, Jeremy. I don't believe I have. I may have inadvertently, but certainly not knowingly. But I'm gonna make some inquiries. So
yeah, Dexter beef is really good. It's like especially if it's been raised purely on grass and nothing else. Like it's really dense. It's dark purple. Has nice yellowed fat. Like it's just good nutrient dense stuff. So yeah, I think one of those cows, like a good sized steer, will last my wife and I over a year, like in terms of eating beef and frequently. And so your average family probably go through it in 6 months to a year. And so
how many cows do you have?
Right now we've got 24 and they're multiplying rapidly. My aim is, so we started with like 10 and we've grown the herd significantly. So we're line breeding and expanding the herd. And my goal is to push it to about 30 cows and 2 bulls. So ideally we'll get around 30 calves a year so we can send off like 2 or 3 a month. And that'll be good, decent income.
Is this what Bill Gates is doing with all the farmland he's buying too?
I don't know what Bill Gates is doing with this farmland. I think he's just sitting on it. Those guys, the government and those NGO guys, like they play some really shitty games with farmland. I think they're just kind of holding it hostage. I think that's their plan. If I may put on my tinfoil hat here for a moment, it seems like the push in Europe and the push in the rest of the world, which seems to be led by Europe, but it's happening here in the States, is for governments to actively discourage farmers from doing their jobs to the point of like, in the Netherlands, they buy their land and they say, you're not allowed to be a farmer anywhere else. Well, how does that benefit anybody? Like, what is that other than a raw land grab and an attempt to put a stranglehold on the food supply? Like, there's no other way that plays out. And what do politicians do best but produce artificial scarcity?
Sure.
So yeah, that's a little unnerving. Bill Gates buys up all this farmland and then like makes fake meat. So
yeah.
he's like altering the market to make space for his new product. It's a little weird.
Well, it's been very gratifying, Jeremy, in recent times to see. Excuse me. It's been very gratifying in recent times to see a huge number of these alternate meat or alternate protein products being highly discredited from their new, particularly, obviously from their nutritional, in terms of nutritional value, as they rightly should be.
Didn't Italy ban artificial meat? I don't know
in
if that's
recent
true or not.
time.
I think, yeah, Like, didn't they put a recent ban on artificial meat?
Uh,
That may be, it may be fake news BS, but
sure.
I don't know.
No,
Let me look
that
that
could
up real quick.
well be that may well be the case. But we've seen this plethora. I live in a country that has historically built its wealth almost entirely on its agricultural production, and a huge portion of that being the dairy products. And then, of course, all of a sudden, we're told that cows are the curse of mankind because they fart and they produce methane, and we're all going to roast to death. So, so we have to find plant alternatives, and just the insanity of some of those products and their complete nutritional bullshit that's promoted has been so disappointing. But then, slowly but surely, as often happens with all of these things, as we've known over time, Jeremy, is they end up being overtly discredited, and we seem to
Yes.
be reaching that point in respect of all the meat alternatives, which are fortunately being highly discredited.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it takes time, and with the rapid spread of information on just what's in it and how bad it is for you,
Yeah.
Ideally, people will wise up. So yeah, I did find Italy approved a draft law that bans the production, sale, and import of lab-grown food, including artificial meat. It's not law yet,
Right.
but I guess, I don't know how the law approval works in Italy, but it sounds like it's gone past one stage of, yes, we need this. So maybe it will be law, and maybe more will follow, hopefully.
Well, it is
Yeah.
interesting how it seems to be coming in waves like that, because I do remember it had to be 2016 or 2017. There was this massive wave of vegetarianism, veganism, whatever. I still don't even know really what the difference is between the two. And then right around like 20, it had to be around 2020. It really became almost mainstream cool again to be eating beef, to be eating steak, and you just wonder, like, what is the reason for that? And it does seem like, to your point, Jeremy, I've seen the the Burger King ads for the Impossible Whopper, right? And then I'm getting like, oh yeah, come eat whatever it is. God knows what it is. But there's now it's coming back the other way again. So it's just fascinating how it
It's
does
the
play out like that.
swinging pendulum. Yeah, like it's the Impossible Whopper. It's impossible to eat.
Yeah.
Are you?
And
Go ahead.
I haven't studied that in the North American sense, but I mean, are products like the Impossible Whopper being highly discredited? Do you think?
It's tough to say right now. Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy. I'd like to hear your
You
take.
don't really hear about it. They really spent a lot of money advertising for it, but now it's like quiet. It's crickets. It's still on the menu, but I don't think it was received as well as they had hoped.
Right.
Um, and so those
Perhaps
kind of
the
things, like, they spend so
yeah,
much money on a product that's not getting a return, then, money talks. So it'll probably
right.
just quietly be removed from the menu, and we'll never hear about it again.
Sort of like transgender toilets being slowly closed down.
Yep. All that stuff.
It's funny, Dave, being here, and you guys both will chuckle at this, being in being in Canada. The city we live in is Hamilton, to be specific, and I saw there was somewhere in like one of the learning centers posted. They did a study on 42. Well, it should have said 42 women who are pregnant, but you can tell whoever wrote this was like trying not to offend people, and so I said they did a study on 42 Hamiltonians, and I'm like, all right,
Ah,
like I was like, but it was almost like, as you're reading it, they wanted to say pregnant women, but they like didn't want people to get mad at them, so they said 42 Hamiltonians.
Hamiltonians.
Birthing
Goodness me.
persons.
Yeah. Goodness me.
Jeremy, are you able to talk about? I know you're working on a book right now, maybe rebranding. So I don't want to, if you're working on it, right? Don't want to pitch it too much, but I know we got some stuff in the pipeline for you.
Well, the content won't change. It's just the name of the cover will change for better marketability. So yeah, we can talk about it.
I know Dave's got himself a copy of, I guess, what soon will be a collectible now.
Rare
Yeah,
first changed edition of 10 copies.
no, it's a no. I'm going to give it to my wife as a birthday present, and so that and she can. She actually went off to a training session at a place called Woman's Shed, and where they in the weekends there's a woman teaching other women how to build things,
Oh, that's cool.
which I thought was a huge leap ahead in terms of civilization. So she's going to be able to completely take responsibility for our next laying hen facility.
So you're going to get her to build some military spec chicken housing?
It's going to be military spec, exactly. We probably don't have quite as wild weather as you do, Jeremy, where we are, but it needs to be warm and robust anyway. So
that's cool, man.
Another thing, Jeremy. I know Jeremy's got some collectibles as well, Dave, and I can't remember if you still do have any military collectibles, but my son was able to get. He had to be, I don't know, 6 months old. A picture in Jeremy's like massive U.S. military camo trucks. I'll have to send you some pictures. It's pretty funny. But do you still have any collectibles like that, Dave? I remember you put a fighter jet on the highway one time in New Zealand as a marketing play. So.
Oh yeah, no, I owned a MiG-21 fighter jet for many years. That was I think that, Jeremy, was the extent of my military collectible. But that is a seriously cool plane. It when it was built in the 70s, earlier, but this was a 73 one. It was just the best plane on the planet. But if you've ever sat in the cockpit of one or got near one, there's actually one on that aircraft carrier on the Hudson River. If you in New York, if you've ever been down to that, you'll tell me the name of it in a second. And the museum, there's one sitting there. But if you ever sit in the cockpit of one of these, you realize you have to love your country to climb in there, because you're basically just sitting on a jet turbine hurtling through the sky. But no, that's the extent of my collectibles, Jeremy. But I've seen photos of yours over time, and they're seriously cool.
Oh man, sometimes I wish I was born 20 years earlier so that I had money when the USSR fell apart, and I would have bought so much cool shit. Like,
yeah.
Man, have you guys ever seen that movie Operation Odessa?
No.
Oh man, it's fucking awesome, I must say. So it's this insane true story of these guys who were basically purchasing agents for Pablo Escobar, and they had connections to Russia. So during the fall of the Soviet Union, they would go over there and they would buy all these vehicles and helicopters and things. And they actually got to a point where they were going to buy a submarine from the Russian Navy. And like literally on the phone call when they're negotiating the sale, like the guy says, "So do you want it with missiles or without missiles?" Like it's just an amazing story.
That's a great story.
Worth a watch. Yeah, you should.
No, I didn't. I ended up negotiating the purchase of a submarine in the early 90s. And it ended up, if you're ever in Sydney, it ended up at Darling Harbour in Sydney. In the end, I didn't have a venue for it, so I put it on to a contact of mine there, and he completed the deal. But that we had the same experience. It was just sensational. All of the stuff was for sale. It was hilarious. So,
yeah,
Dave, is there anything that you haven't done? I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, I don't think I could really lay claim to actually being able to successfully have laying chickens. So that's a high discredit to me, and I think I need to do some work on that. So
see, I want to be like you when I grow up.
No, no, you don't want that. So, Jeremy, tell us in terms of your experiences in terms of farming, that what, again, if someone was looking for in terms of their homesteading, the simplest commercial opportunity, what do you I guess it varies geographically, but just from your experiences, what would that be?
Well, I guess it depends on how soon you want to return, because a lot of this stuff takes a lot of time. Like, it takes 21 days to hatch an egg. It takes 6 months for a chicken to start laying eggs. And it takes 12 weeks for a chick, like a meat bird, to reach maturity from a chick to an adult. That's if you're running like a slightly more traditional than like a fat Frankenstein Cornish crossbird.
Yeah.
Cattle, cow math, like a cow gestates for 9 months. It needs 18 months to 2 years to grow out to feed. So if you're doing cattle, you're looking at a 3-year grow out.
Right.
So how soon do you want your returns?
Yeah.
Pigs are the fastest growing things. They call them
Yeah.
mortgage lifters for a reason. So, you could take a pig to market anywhere from several months to several years.
Yeah.
And they taste just as good when they're slaughtered young as they do when they're slaughtered old. So yeah, if you're starting out, I would say pigs.
Okay.
They
What
do
was
eat
that
a lot,
term you
but
gave to the pigs, Jeremy?
did I give a
You
term to the pigs? Oh,
you
mortgage
said
lifters.
mortgage lifters. That's
Yeah.
sensational. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
they grow fast. They market for a decent price. They're
Right.
profitable. They do eat a
Right.
lot, so you're going to have to spend a decent amount of money in feed before you realize your gains. But after you
Yeah.
sell them all, you should have a tidy profit. And you can either keep some to breed, or you can buy what they call feeder pigs. So they're the young ones weaned off their mothers that are ready to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple strategies you can use depending on how much land you have, what your resources are, what's available. But yeah, if you want like best short-term, easy to deal with profit, pigs, I think, are the way to go.
All right.
And then maybe
So
chickens
long as you're
second
not
and
in a
cattle
big
third.
Jewish community, I assume, Jeremy.
Well, make sure their morals, make sure they have flexible morals.
All right. And do you grow your own food for your pigs again, or is that a mix?
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing we found. There's like a forage mix of seeds you can throw down for chickens that, that not only they like to eat the greens, but they like to eat the grown plants as well. And that includes, turnips and daikons and rutabagas and things like that. So areas where the chickens have, scratched out and decimated the grass, we will throw this forage mix down and rake it in. And it works so well. It takes over everything. Everything's like this lush green garden of root vegetables and things. And
Yeah.
once they get so big, the chickens can only keep up with so much. And once they get so big,
Yeah.
you can just rip the stuff out of the ground, throw it in the pig
Yeah.
pen, and the pigs love it.
Right.
And then you can just regrow it, and it's kind of like a self-sustaining thing. Now, it doesn't cover their entire nutritional needs, but it's good for them. We have a ton of oak trees that drop so many acorns. We've got pecan trees that drop a lot of pecans. We give all that to the pigs. Some of that they just kind of forage on naturally. So yeah, I mean, we do offset our feed bill with a lot of stuff that just kind of grows here naturally. We will be greatly expanding our pecan operation. So the hurricane that we had last year knocked down dozens of pecan trees, and so we lost a lot. There weren't that many left here. I think this area started like 100 years ago as a pecan plantation. And so there's not very many of those old trees left. Anyways, ones that got knocked down, fortunately, they left a bunch of pecans on the ground that grew into trees. So I was out there the other day, like dropping these little survey tags on all these trees, and I had hoped to maybe get a couple of dozen, but I ended up using 100 flags, and we're still finding more out there. So we're going to definitely replant a lot of that, and then maybe in 6 or 7 years we'll have even more pecans to feed to the pigs. And man, pigs finished on acorns and pecans, holy crap, they're so good.
How cool. Well, that is interesting, isn't it? That is that a typical feed for pigs, though, Jeremy?
Yeah. Well, the Spanish, their traditional jamon, like they finish their pigs on acorns. Like they forage them in these acorn areas with lots of oak trees. And that's part of what gives them their distinctive flavor.
But for how many months pre-kill do they do that?
I don't remember. When I was in Barcelona, I went to the Museo de Jamón, and like they had this really fancy high-tech presentation on how the jamón is made. And I don't remember how long they have them on acorns, but it's
right.
Yeah, several months.
And so, and the ones you feed on pecan, you absolutely notice a significant difference in terms of the taste, the flavor of the meat.
We have not slaughtered any pigs for our own consumption since we moved here. So I can't comment on that, but we'll find out soon. Like within a few weeks, we're going to send some to slaughter, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be delicious. We've been giving them all the surplus eggs. We've been giving them acorns and pecans, and they've been foraging on all kinds of stuff, really good stuff out in the forest.
Fantastic. Oh, well done.
I love it. Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm guessing we'll probably have to start with shipping just in the U.S. because I don't know what it's like getting food out of the country. But there you go. ANCAP Radio Steaks. I never thought that we'd be looking at it, but I'm going to throw the idea out there. So
I need to get like a custom brand so I can like sear the ANCAP Radio logo into a steak and like take some really good photos of it.
There you go. That's delightful.
We're at the top of the hour now, folks. If you are tuning in with us live or on the replay, again, hit the like button, the retweet button. Make sure you give Jeremy a follow here. Check out all the links down below in the thread, in the description. Before we shut it down, though, Jeremy and then Dave, just kind of in that order, what are some of your key takeaways from today's session?
I don't know if you've ever.
I guess you're the one teaching us today, Jeremy. So if nothing comes to mind.
Yeah.
Well,
no, indeed.
One of the things I wanted to bring up, didn't get a chance, but so the basic three needs of a human being are food, water, and shelter, right?
Right.
They say you can die in 3 minutes from exposure, so shelter is like the top priority in any kind of situation. Water is next. You die in 3 days without water, and food, you die in like 3 months. The government's tampering with all that. So, to a lesser extent with the shelter and the water, but they are really tampering a lot with your food. So pay attention, like, make sure what's in it. Like, just because the government says it's good for you, like, can you trust that? Look more into it, because you're putting it in you. It becomes part of you. And if you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out.
Indeed.
People they'll go to war over, they're going to take my guns away, or, I'm a free speech, but they don't give any thought to the fact that your food system is compromised by government rules and regulations and, the whims of globalists who don't even live or belong here. Pay attention to this stuff. It's stuff that people can affect, if they fight back against it or if they circumvent the stupid regulations with it. But right now there literally is an international war on food. So, look into doing business with a local farmer to source your food, find out where it comes from. If it comes from local stuff, like, you'll get to know your farmers, you make friends with them, buy their stuff. It's usually really good stuff. Like if the farmer is eating it, you can pretty well guess that it's going to be good and good for you. You're supporting your local economy. You know, if you're concerned about my environment, local stuff is the way to go. Like feedlot beef is probably one of the biggest polluting things. Like that's why beef gets a bad name now. They say, oh, it's polluting, it's cow farts and methane and CO2. Well, you wouldn't have all that. Most of that comes from the fuel to move them around. Like, they're born on farms in X location. They're brought to the CAFO operation in Y location. They're fed feed that's grown all over the country and trucked in. And then they live in this shitty situation where they're fed grain that they're not supposed to eat. And then they're slaughtered and frozen and they're shipped out again using all this fuel and energy. Whereas, a local cow, it's born in this grass field out back. It lives its life in this grass field out back. It's slaughtered 5 miles down the road. And that's the extent of the energy input that goes into it. Everything else is solar, right? the grass grows with the sun and the rain, and it just falls from the sky quite literally. There's zero inputs here. There's no fuel involved except for like a short trip to the slaughterhouse. So don't believe the propaganda. Don't believe the vegan propaganda. It's all all garbage.
Propaganda. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. No, thoroughly. No, thank you, Jeremy. That was excellent. As always, thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. And
thank you.
And thank you for the inspiration on the as you would call it, the homesteading, because I think that anyone who aspires to our philosophic values and wants to live a decent ANCAP life should at some stage be thinking seriously about how they can find themselves a place remotely where they can just quietly enjoy a meaningful and worthwhile life and be self-sustaining.
Well, if anything, it's one more thing that they can't have against you is leverage. If your food supply is not reliant on them, then yeah.
Fantastic.
So true. Thank you, Jeremy. Again, everyone, if you're not following Jeremy already, make sure you do that and check out the links we got below for what he's working on. He's got some big things coming, especially with the rebranding of the book. And Dave's got the collectible. I guess I'll have to see if I can grab a collectible here too before the other one goes viral. But anyways, Jeremy, thank you again for investing your most valuable resource with us. As you alluded to earlier today, your time. We really appreciate it. And look forward
you're
to
welcome.
We'll keep the conversations going, get you back on here, all that good stuff, man. It's always a pleasure to connect. So thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.
You got it. And everyone tuned in, thank you again for another episode of ANCAP Radio. We'll catch you here next week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another rock star guest. In fact, we do have the guest for next week confirmed. You'll see that in our thread here soon, but we'll just say one of the orchestrators of Freedom Fest and many other cool things going on in the world of libertarianism, ANCAP, anarcho-capitalism, and voluntarism. So thank you again. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.